Imagine you're standing in the field in Lexington, Massachusetts, at dawn on April 19, 1775. The morning mist still hangs over the grass, and the cool air carries the scent of damp earth. In front of you, a group of militiamen, farmers, blacksmiths, and merchants stand in formation, gripping their rifles tightly, their eyes resolute but not without anxiety. Opposite them are redcoats, elite British soldiers with bright red uniforms and gleaming bayonets. A shot rings out, no one knows from which side, and in an instant, the peaceful field turns into a battlefield. The shots at Lexington and Concord were not just the beginning of the American Revolution. They were the echo of a people determined to win freedom, no matter the cost in blood and tears. This is the story of the war that shaped the United States, a war of ordinary people with extraordinary dreams. The spark at Lexington and Concord. The shots at Lexington and Concord were the result of years of tension. After the Boston Tea Party and the Intolerable Acts, Great Britain decided to quell the rebellion in Massachusetts by seizing the militia's armory. But the colonists were prepared. Imagine the farmers in Concord stay up all night to hide guns and gunpowder in barns and cellars. When the British troops arrived, they met fierce resistance. In Lexington, 8 militiamen were killed, but in Concord, the British were repelled by militiamen called ministrymen, those ready to fight at a moment's notice. Imagine them hiding behind stone walls, sniping at British troops on their retreat to Boston. This was not just a small military victory, it was a symbol of resistance, inspiring all the colonies. News of Lexington and Concord spread like wildfire. From Virginia to New Hampshire, colonies took up arms, joined militias, and prepared for war. The Second Continental Congress met in Philadelphia in May 1775 with names like John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, and Thomas Jefferson. They decided to form the Continental Army and appointed George Washington, a veteran from Virginia with a calm but resolute demeanor, as commander-in-chief. Imagine Washington riding his horse to Boston, carrying the hopes of a nation, but also facing an almost impossible challenge, transforming an unorganized militia into a real army to confront the world's most powerful empire. The first battles, Bunker Hill and beyond. In the summer of 1775, the Battle of Bunker Hill, though it actually took place mostly on Bridge Hill, marked the first turning point. Imagine a hill overlooking Boston, where colonial militiamen dug trenches overnight, preparing to face the British Army. When the Redcoats attacked, they faced volleys of fire from resilient farmers and artisans. Although the militia eventually had to retreat due to lack of ammunition, they made the British pay dearly with thousands of casualties. This battle proved that the colonists were not weak rebels. They were willing to fight and sacrifice. Imagine a young soldier standing in a trench, trembling but still loading his musket, knowing that each shot was a declaration of freedom. Meanwhile, the war spread. In the south, the Virginia militia repelled the British at Norfolk. In Canada, an expedition led by Benedict Arnold attempted to persuade Quebec to join the rebellion, but failed in the bitter cold of winter. Imagine the soldiers trudging through the snow, hungry and exhausted, but still carrying the hope of the free future. These failures taught the Continental Army a valuable lesson. They needed organization, discipline, and external support. The Declaration of Independence, a nation's proclamation. In 1776, amidst the smoke of war, a fateful moment occurred in Philadelphia. The Continental Congress decided that it was time to completely break away from Great Britain. Thomas Jefferson, a young lawyer from Virginia with a sharp pen, was tasked with drafting the Declaration of Independence. Imagine Jefferson sitting in a small room, candlelight flickering, writing the immortal words. all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These words were not just a farewell to Great Britain, they were a promise of a new ideal, though that ideal at the time did not yet apply to women, enslaved people, or Native Americans. On July 4, 1776, the Declaration of Independence was adopted. Imagine the delegates, from John Hancock's with its boldly large signature to the lesser-known farmers, standing in the Stuffy Room in Philadelphia, knowing that they had just signed a document that could lead them to the gallows. News of the declaration spread, and throughout the colonies, people gathered in town squares, lit bonfires, and cheered. But that joy also came with fear. They were now traitor in the eyes of Great Britain, and only victory could save them. The dark years. The war was not easy. In 1776 to 1777, the British Army, under the command of General William Howe, captured New York and pushed the Continental Army onto defensive. Imagine Washington and his troops, hungry and wretched, retreating through New Jersey in the bitter cold of winter. At Valley Forge in the winter of 1777 to 1778, thousands of soldiers endured biting cold, lacking food and clothing. Imagine a young soldier, wrapped in tattered blanket, writing a letter to his family by the faint light of the fire, wondering if he would survive to see the day of victory. But it was at Valley Forge that Washington, with the help of people like Baron von Steuben, trained the army into a more professional force. This resilience was a testament to the spirit of revolution. In 1777, a glimmer of hope appeared at Saratoga, New York. The Battle of Saratoga was the first major victory for the Continental Army, when the General Horatio Gates and Benedict Arnold defeated the British forces commanded by General John Burgoyne. Imagine thousands of British soldiers surrendering while American militiamen cheered in joy. This victory not only boosted morale but also convinced France to join the war as an ally. France's support with warships, troops, and money became a decisive factor. On the home front, women, slaves, and Native Americans. The war was not only fought on the battlefield. On the home front, women played a crucial role. Imagine a woman in Virginia managing the farm while her husband was at war, or a nurse in Philadelphia caring for wounded soldiers. Some women, like Deborah Sampson, even disguised themselves as men to fight. Their stories, though rarely recorded, are testament to silent sacrifices. Enslaved people faced a difficult choice. Britain promised freedom to those who joined their army, and thousands fled plantations seeking opportunity. But the Continental Army also began recruiting black people, though often only for support roles. Imagine an enslaved person in South Carolina standing on the line, wondering if freedom would truly come no matter which side won. Meanwhile, Native Americans like the Iroquois Confederacy were divided. Some supported the British, others the Americans, but all suffered heavy losses as the wars ravaged their lands. Yorktown, the pinnacle of victory. By 1781, the war reached its climax at Yorktown, Virginia. With the support of French troops led by General Rochambeau and the French fleet blocking the British retreat, Washington besieged the British forces under General Cornwallis. Imagine the roaring cannons, thick smoke, and exhausted but determined soldiers. After weeks of siege, Cornwallis surrendered in October 1775. As the British troops marched out, head bowed, the band played "The World Turned Upside Down," a symbol of the reversal of the world order. The victory at Yorktown was not the end of the war, but it marked the end of British hope of retaining the colonies. Peace and a new beginning. The Treaty of Paris in 1783 officially ended the war, recognizing the United States as an independent nation. Imagine the American delegates, Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, and John Jay, sitting in Paris signing the document that shaped the destiny of a nation. The colonies, now states, gained territory stretching from the Atlantic Ocean to the Mississippi River, but victory did not erase the wounds. More than 25,000 Americans died, cities were ravaged, and the economy was in disarray. Native Americans and enslaved people, despite contributing to the war, largely did not receive the freedom promised by the Declaration. As the sun set over the fields of Yorktown, the soldiers returned home carrying both pride and pain. They had fought not just for land or power, but for an idea, a nation where people could determine their own destiny. But as they stepped into a new world, big questions remained. How to build a nation from the ashes of war? Who would freedom be for? And American Revolution was not just a war. It was the beginning of the great experiment, an experiment that would shape not only the United States, but the world for centuries to come.